Welcome to episode 18 of Help Me Understand, where we seek biblical clarity through conversation. We're back.
That was perfect.
Just the two of us here in our studio, otherwise known as backstage at Arrowhead Church. And we had guests for the last 4 episodes, then kind of a recap of that experience from our Happy Remnant time at our church. Special guest star Nick Bible on the last episode and kind of set us up for a new season. We're still going to try to have some guests because we realize
we like talking to other people.
we
Clearly, talking is not my strong suit. Not today.
Love talking to you more, but still, it is a good thing to hear fresh voices and other perspectives. So we're going to try to do more of that as the days go on. But today, what we wanted to do was kind of launch us out into a new season of our church. So we are going into a new series. It's kind of a short series, but for me, it's something I've been thinking a ton about and just feel like the Lord has been reminding me of. And in reality, it's kind of a reordering of all of life question, and that is, what are you going to live for? I think of all the potential answers to that question. There's the quote, the 2 most important days of a man's life are the day he was born, the day he's born, and the day he finds out why. You ever heard that epic statement?
Oh yeah.
And you think of all the places that, or all the ways you could answer that question, right? What were you born for? We love to talk in our world about purpose.
Yeah.
And meaning.
Well, it feels like everybody has a mission statement.
Everybody, even personal mission statements.
You have life coaches there's an entire industry helping people discover their purpose, what they're made for. Values are a big part of that. There's every other podcast under the business and leadership tab is going to be about mission and vision. So,
yeah.
Very popular statement.
Yeah, what is it that you have been put on this earth to do? A really popular question. Sometimes it's even got really unselfish answers. Like what were you put on the planet to do in relation to serving other people?
Yeah.
Or how can you make the world a better place? We answer it with we answer that kind of generic question, I guess, sometimes. But what we're going to do over the weeks ahead in the life of our church is look at this idea that anything short of living for the glory of God, even if it's a selfless endeavor, something you're going to give your life away for, someone you're going to give your life away for or to, anything that stops short of living for the glory of God, living for the name of God is eventually going to be inadequate. Yeah. It's going to leave you hopeless. It's going to leave you empty. It's going to disappoint. No one else can satisfy that place that you're called to, to the place where you're called to live for something bigger than yourself.
Yeah. I think a helpful metaphor for me to think about is the idea of a trade. And so if you have a certain number of days or energy, what are you willing to trade your life for? What are you thinking of getting back? The value of your days.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And just it's so easy to kind of zoom back and see, but so hard day after day to experience that anything that's temporary, anything that does not last forever, is eventually going to demonstrate itself to be inadequate in the way that you seek to serve it.
Yeah, so I think that this idea is really appealing to me just in terms of we're not ready or qualified to make any sort of statement about the state of affairs locally, nationally, but it does feel like we're at a time where we go, okay, there's a difference between what the next few months can feel like as opposed to the last few months. And so if that is true, like what would be helpful for the average person who's listening to this podcast, the average person who finds himself in a church or calls himself a follower of Jesus. So the implications what you're talking about have to do with this personal set of mission vision that you think God has really spelled out for us in Scripture.
Yeah, I think so. So what we want to do is just consider what it means to live for the glory of God versus living for I love this phrase, um, living for our own name, or this phrase that's lifted out of Genesis 11 that we say all the time. And that's the idea of living to make a name for yourself.
Mm.
And um, so, even to rewind earlier than Genesis 11, the temptation that Satan put before Eve and Adam in the garden, of course, was if you eat this fruit, you won't die. What's actually happening here is God knows if you eat this fruit, you'll be like him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's told you don't do that because he doesn't want you to get glory. He doesn't want you to be on equal terms with him. So Satan appeals to Adam and Eve to say, really, it's better than okay. Like it's normal for you to live for your sake, like for your name. It's normal for you to elevate yourself when what God is actually trying to do is squash you, right? So he reorders their thinking from it being a joyful thing to live for the Lord, to give God everything you have, to surrender your life to him. And really what would make you happy is to make a name for yourself.
Yeah. And I think that it's helpful to think that temptation is really just always being rebranded. It's never an original. All temptation is basically a new or different way of saying the same old thing that our enemy has always tried to offer us, either a shortcut, a way around, something that will take us less time or effort that we won't have to work for, or saying you deserve this, and so you are actually putting yourself in a lesser position by not taking what is rightfully yours. And so from the very beginning, that's the temptation that all of us are facing, and so it's nothing new.
It is we could say the root of all sin really is pride. I mean, we know that gets said a lot, but it's so obvious even from those earliest, that earliest the first sin, the first temptation we see in scripture. So at the end of Genesis 3, after the curse comes for sin, the curse comes on humanity, the Bible says that God removes Adam and Eve from the garden and he sends them out to the east. So not that I know anything about literature, but there's that book East of Eden, right, where the idea is the suffering of being like pushed away from what is good.
Right.
So I say that just to kind of connect the dots here, because this phrase is here in Genesis 11 where it says, I'm just starting in verse 1, where they are going to build the Tower of Babel, or the Tower of Babylon. So the whole earth had the same language and vocabulary. So people had a lot of alignment.
Yeah.
They had, a way to accomplish a lot, to really live like for a big purpose.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same language and vocabulary. As people migrated from the east, so there you go, they found a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let us make oven-fired bricks." So, like, we make pizzas in oven fire, right? But they're going to make bricks. They use brick for stone and asphalt for mortar, it says. So, they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the sky." So here's their temptation again. You can be like God. We'll build a tower to take you all the way up to the heavens where you can see from God's perspective.
Yeah, and I think that so growing up in a conservative Sunday school, very traditional church, I had understood that story to be this was man's attempt to get to God. But that's not really what the scripture is saying. It's not that you want a relationship with God or even to be nearer to him. It's saying, I want to take God's place.
Yep.
So again, back to this original temptation. It's not, hey, you need to be with God. It's that you are as rightful to that place. You've earned the place, the same one that God inhabits.
Yep. Yeah, and the rest of the verse says, point blank, let us make a name for ourselves.
Mm.
Otherwise, we'll be scattered throughout the earth. So here's their temptation right there. You know, we are going to let everyone else around us know. They should look to us and see a reputation, an image of something powerful, strong, authoritative, worthy of honor. And so there's the replacement of living for the glory of God with living for their own name. So living for the name of God, or living for their own name. So that story really plays itself out all throughout Scripture.
Yeah.
Right? It seems like that's the goal, and it's certainly the goal of my life, in my flesh, my experience, to want to make a name for myself. I'm so messed up. Sometimes I've tried to make a name for myself by saying I'm not trying to make a name for myself.
Yeah, there's like this. It's hipster to be like, I'm going to be unlike everybody else, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, do you think the motivation for that? I mean, I'm hearing you read those verses, and I'm going, there is some real like fear, motivation in those people. They're saying, we're worried that we will be anonymous, that
Yep.
we won't have any claim to fame. We're worried that we won't have a decent legacy to pass on. We're worried that we're not going to have a collective to be a part of, and that we're going to be scattered. And so all of this, like, even if you just think about the motivation for this sin is, I don't feel like there's like I'm getting something from God that I need,
Yep.
or I don't feel secure, or I don't feel like I have a legacy in terms of what's going to happen after me. And so it's this artificial way of accomplishing something that God actually has a plan to give us anyways.
Yeah, people will know me more. I'll be worth more.
Yeah.
If I'm able to make a name for myself.
Yeah.
I mean, even in ministry world, that's so, people I think are aware that the temptations in ministry are the same as in the world, right? Like I can remember doing ministry in a bigger town, working at a large church in Knoxville, and you doing ministry at a even larger church in the Atlanta area, and God calling me to plant a church in Morristown, and thinking on some level, hard as this is to admit, as a 28, 29-year-old guy, but like, if I go to Morristown, nobody will ever know who I am.
Yeah.
And there's that whole dynamic. Some people, I think, experience this temptation of wanting to kind of be a big fish in a small town or small pond. Or
Yeah.
fishes don't live in towns; they live in ponds. Big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
There's that whole thing. Like, I want people to know. I mean, mathematically, our church could be larger if it was in a larger populated area.
Yeah.
So it hits us all. It doesn't matter whether you're a businessman who wants to be a global enterprise, or you're working in a medical field and you want to have some breakthrough that's going to let you be known. It hits us all. And you're in high school and you want to,
Yeah, and that's so helpful because it's easy to read the story about this group of people and be so hard on them and go, what were you thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how could you possibly think that building this tower was going to bring you any sort of joy? And then I go, oh wait, I mean, I have that. I mean, look through my journals, look through,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about my dialogue with the Lord sometimes, and it's like, I am so guilty of the same thing, of wanting notoriety.
Yeah, my oven-fired bricks are all over the place.
That's right. Yeah, that's good. That's the phrase that pays right there.
Yeah, so God's called us to live for His glory. We think Isaiah 42:8. I'm the Lord, that is my name. My glory I will not give to another, or my praise to idols.
Mm.
God is not going to share His reputation. He's not going to share the glory that He deserves, which is something we could spend a lot of time on, digging into. We won't, but how is it that God can command us to live for His glory? Well, it's because it's the only thing worth living for. Who else, in comparison to God's power and glory and holiness, I mean, who else could even possibly stand before Him, and also just the trade that we get. Like we get joy from living for His glory. And so his response, of course, I mean, if we just stick to gospel passages and kind of the whole storyline of Scripture being to rescue us, it's amazing that although this is our tendency and it really never stops, our capacity for living for our own name really never ends. There's no limit to it. Um, he reminds us, I love this passage in Philippians 2, where he kind of tells us how everything is going to end, result in the glory of Jesus. Um, I know we're going to read toward the end here, but when you said something earlier, it reminded me. Even you think about verse 6, adopt the same attitude as that of Christ Jesus. So this is a passage where we often remind ourselves of living with the humility of Christ, but who, existing in the form of God, did not consider equality with God something to be exploited. Instead he emptied himself by assuming the form of a servant, taking on the likeness of humanity, and then he becomes a man. So this passage is sometimes interpreted a little different way too, but it seems what he's saying is, other translations have said he didn't consider equality with God as something to be grasped. So he knew, if I'm safe, my glory is safe. If I get off this throne and I go to earth, no one's going to be able to ascend. They're trying.
Yeah.
They're going to try to take my throne, but they'll never get my throne.
Mm.
So he's free, knowing that to live for his glory and to live for the glory of his Father is the only, it's a total secure thing. He empties himself, comes to earth, and in all humility, of course, goes to the cross. The passage says for himself, says describing himself. But because of that, verse 9, for this reason God highly exalted him and gave him the name that's above every name, so that at the name of Jesus every knee will bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So that's where everything ends, right?
Yeah.
Every one of us, whether having surrendered on earth to live for the glory of God, or being judged forever in eternity, there will be no doubt among any of us who actually was God, right?
Yeah.
Who actually was in control, whose name was worthy to really be lived for. And you get a similar story. If you go all the way to Revelation 7, you see this picture of it happening, verses 9 through 11 there as well, I think. But just this picture of, in verse 9, a vast multitude from every nation, tribe, people, and language, which no one could number, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes and palm branches in their hands. They cried out in a loud voice, salvation belongs to our God who's seated on the throne and to the Lamb. So they worship, they fall face down, verse 11. And so the story is, everything breaks down. This is the Bible, right? Everything breaks down. We see why, because we live for our own name. God amazingly responds to come after us. Jesus says, okay, I'll leave my throne, I'll come to earth. And he restores then our relationship with God and puts us in a place where we can live for the glory of God. And then in the end, that's exactly what happens. God has put everything back together, and we, once again, rightly are living for his glory.
That makes so much sense, and I think logically especially, for us to think that there's any way to subvert that, to mess that up. We're going to actually figure it out the same way that the builders of this Tower of Babel thought, oh, well, we have all this history behind us, but we have this new technology, right? We have bricks that we can, cook in the fire, and we have mortar that's actually asphalt now. It's like, oh, but see, what they didn't have is what we now have, according to our new way of living and technology. That's so familiar, because we go, well, we can dismiss lessons learned in the past only because we think we're at a better advantage now because of what's available to us. And so it's history repeating itself over and over again. Do you think that for a church to consider a possibility, maybe a potential place to slip up, are churches susceptible to the same sort of faulty way of thinking? We talk about this reputation what we're trying to give or find in a church is like an image or a group. Is there a correlation there between this temptation that's common to all people and then also for the average church?
Yeah, I think there is. I think as we come together as a people, particularly in our world,
Yeah.
we have a desire to make a name for not just ourselves but for our church.
Yeah.
The series is called Branded, and I mean we're all familiar now with the concept of brands. You know, logos are one thing. Logos are a visual representation of a brand.
Yeah.
So if you see a swoosh, that swoosh calls to mind something about what you think of when you think of Nike.
Yeah. Yeah, and Nike is so much more than a logo. A brand would be not just a product, but a way of life.
Right.
You know, a set of values.
Yep.
And so Nike, as said from the very beginning, I remember reading in Phil Knight's autobiography called Shoe Dog, that he was never interested in advertising or selling shoes. He was selling an athletic way of approaching life.
Yep.
And so this idea of being branded is not just about the stuff as much as it is this is a description of who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you know, the logo on the back of
That's
my
right.
of my iPad isn't just a logo. It doesn't just identify.
Yeah. There's a reason that people put their Apple stickers on their cars.
Yeah.
You know, it's because we want to be seen as we are just as enlightened as what the commercial says. Like, we think differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are not just part of the common business crowd that is IBM or Windows, but it's sleekness, it's quality. It's like, hey, I want to be associated with some really positive things. But that happens in the church too.
Yeah. So I have this, I always say, the worst tattoo I ever saw. So I know you're not a huge Dollywood Splash Country fan, but I was.
That's not fair. I have some history. Having worked at Dolly's Splash Country.
That's true. You were forgot you were.
It's like when you see how the sausage is made, it's hard to
Right.
make that your number one pizza topping.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. We just had spent a lot of time there with our kids, but I once saw a guy. I've seen a lot of athletic tattoos at Splash Country. So like power tees. Just good. We have a friend with power tee, Jess. I'm sure you're watching. It's awesome.
A power tee, for those of you who aren't familiar, is the orange Tennessee logo. It's the big thing that's on the back of cars.
Yeah, I've seen Florida Gator logos on people's body.
It's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I once saw a Hurley logo, like the surfing brand Hurley. It's an H kind of butterfly thing. Yeah, I once saw a guy with a Hurley logo on his left arm. And I was like, what? Why? Like,
unless your name is Hurley,
right.
I don't understand that one.
Sure. So apparently he's projecting like a
You should
hip
see my
surfer, lifestyle.
Yeah.
So we're all familiar with brands, right? We know that it's a logo, but it's telling a story.
Yeah.
All right, now you're leading me out, which I appreciate, toward a rant, and I don't want to rant. I'm just concerned. Okay. Help me understand.
It's a safe
here.
spot. It's just you and me and the mic.
It feels like the branding of churches is we're trying to do the same thing that the corporate world, there's no point even saying corporate America, is trying to do. We're trying, and so also I'm not ranting because this is unavoidable in some ways. I mean, think every person you can think of. I mean, think of your wife, your boss, your teacher, your coach. Like, God has made us to have a personality.
Yeah.
And it's not all wrong. Where branding goes wrong is when it tries to project something that it's not.
Yeah.
Or where it calls attention to itself. That would be, for me, that's at the hub of my concern, where it's calling attention to itself.
Yeah.
And I think in the world of digital media of all kinds,
Of which we are participating.
Which
Thank
we're
you
doing
for
right now.
participating in with us. But yeah.
there is the tendency, the temptation to call attention to yourself.
Yeah. Similar to like, you want to be known for who you follow. I follow Apollos. You know, I follow Paul. And it's sort of this same sort of early church history of this is the version of the message that I think makes me not just distinct, but what you're saying I think is really helpful is better.
Better, yes.
Yeah, that's the danger. It's because you're saying, aha, look, this is where I'm at an advantage here because I am enlightened in ways that you are not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We years ago had this. All churches were doing this. I love my church thing.
Yeah.
And that's good. Like, there's nothing wrong
It's
with
a good-
that. I'm all in favor of.
love
I
your
love my
church.
church.
Yeah.
I love my church. But like, name, reputation, we got to be careful and cautious with some of those things. Our brands, you and I had this conversation a lot when we were shut down with the pandemic. Some of the things we're known for, loud music, casual atmosphere, relational ministry, those things got tested when we had to shut the doors.
Yeah.
Right? Like, all of a sudden, no one wants to come in here and rock out the full band with guitar, 2 electrics, bass, keys, drums, and 3 vocalists. Right? Because we're not even, now we're bumping up against the 10-person limit.
Right.
Like, we're even breaking.
Are we allowed to have that many people on the
yeah,
stage?
within
Exactly.
within 6. I mean, can they social distance? You know, so now, you know, here we are, and we've got one worship leader on stage with an acoustic guitar, or Garrett and Nick,
Yeah.
on stage leading from guitar and keys. And it's like, well, are we still us? Well, that depends. What makes us us? You know, does the music make us us? Does the coffee make us us? We can't serve coffee.
Right.
You don't want anybody who doesn't have a blue glove on touching your cup.
Yeah.
So what makes us us? So I don't know how long we've been talking. Probably way too long.
We're good.
But what we're going to do in these weeks ahead is just like try to just call attention back to what really makes us us. We can make a longer list than this, but what makes us as Christians is the cross, the Bible and its living truth, and love, like, which just seems to be unavoidable considering Jesus said, you would know me, you would know who my followers are by the way that they love one another.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to unpack this idea on Sunday coming up, and then take a week with each one of those things, and just try to lead ourselves to do some evaluation on, is this really what makes us us?
Yeah.
Or is our brand something that we're aiming at that might be outside? Now, there's anything wrong with some of those things. We got a mission statement. It's not going away. We've got values on the wall out there. They're not going away. The logo is not going away, right? But at the same time, what do we want to be known for?
Yeah.
Is it some projection or something that tries to call attention to us?
Yeah. And I think that's so helpful, because these are not ideas that you are saying, all right, I need to come up with this stuff. I have to have this great brainstorm session, and then where is that? Let me find a verse for that. I mean, the idea that there's a reason that we can be gathered together as a people, that is the cross. Then it's okay, how will we be gathered? Well, that information is found in the scripture. And then what do we do once we're gathered? Well, we love God and we love one another. And so that is that gospel story. That's the narrative of scripture. And so we're not superimposing anything else. We're just asking some real questions of the Bible. And I think it's going to be really helpful for people who are, I think, now these days, more than ever, wondering, why should I care?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what if my reasons for being a part of a group or coming to something had to do more with just the outside stuff, this sort of things on the periphery. All right, now it's sort of been stripped away, and so I have these questions, and I think these are some helpful answers to.
Yeah, and man, like just even as you're talking there too, I'm thinking, what if the reasons I'm coming were just that it was helpful?
Yeah.
You know, like what if they got? We're talking about things being stripped away, but what if it's just being helpful? Like I think every pastor's kind of felt that tension of someone new comes to your church, and it's like all of a sudden, whoa, they're so excited, they're so fired up, and I've been in that situation, and this is so helpful. This is my faith is growing, or
Yeah.
I'm learning tips and tools for how to connect with God, and then like the rhythm of the Christian life is up and then it's down,
Yeah.
right? And all of a sudden, like whoa, I'm not feeling it anymore, and you can almost see that cycle in all of our lives play out if you hang out together long enough. So everything, whether outward, image driven, or even if it's just inward, is too small a thing to live for
Yeah.
apart from living for the glory of God and for the fame of His name and not our own.
I love it. Hey, thanks for spending some time with us today. Again, if there's ever any question that you have, email us at HMU at arrowhead.church. Also, it occurs to me that we are a couple of guys in ministry, have pastoral hearts, and so even if there's a prayer request, something going on in your life, we would know. We'd love to know what that is. Love to pray for you on your behalf. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.